to Desire to Retire, Ready or Not. Now, we all know what we are retiring from. What we are retiring to is less certain. Hello, I'm Estelle Kelly, retirement life coach. And this morning, my guest is Rick Canali, and I'll let him introduce his furry friend there. Rick is a person who hasn't been retired very long, and he's going to share with us his experience of leading up to his retirement date, which wasn't that long ago. So good morning, Rick and Harvey.
Good morning, Estelle.
Yeah, so what is it that you'd like to tell us about yourself, Rick?
Well, hello. As you say, my name's Rick. This is Harvey, one of my dogs, who I now have a lot more time for, and he seems to have decided today to sit on my lap while doing this. I don't know why, but he just decided to pop up. So thank you for tolerating his presence. I retired about 3 weeks ago. I've spent almost 40 years working at universities in Australia. I've worked at 3 different universities. I won't bore you with the details, but my work involved both software and teaching. So I worked in that area where support's provided to the academics who teach students. I've done a lot of academic development, large learning management system implementation projects at 3 different universities, that sort of thing. So I retired just 3 weeks ago at the end of the year, effectively,
Wow.
end of 2021. So,
Yeah.
I suppose your questions will bring out some more details. And I'm 63 years of age, so I retired just a few years earlier than the conventional time.
Yeah. So congratulations on your 40-year career, Rick. That's really an achievement and something that you'll have lots of time to reflect on now. So
Mhm.
yeah. So in the lead up to your retirement, Rick, what were the top 3 considerations or concerns that you had when you were thinking about your impending retirement?
Well, I guess the pandemic situation made me concerned about the possibility of an economic downturn and becoming, becoming a self-funded retiree. Immediately, you are concerned about the value of your investments and whether or not they will be able to sustain you in the longer term, or whether you may find yourself having to re-enter the workforce, or end up having to reconfigure everything so that you have to end up being on a pension instead.
Yeah.
But apart from that, so there's just the financial and economic concerns, but I didn't have any other um, serious concerns about retirement. The possibility of retiring looked attractive to me for probably the last couple of years.
Okay. Yeah. So you've been looking forward to it, and
Yes.
it's arrived. That's great. Yes. So I imagine there was a lot of thought and planning that went into that. So you you've retired, and you said, like in Australia, we tend to think of the retirement age as 65. And you've said that you've retired before that age. That's not uncommon, Rick. So you've joined a big crew of people there. But I heard you say that, in the last couple of years, you were sort of starting to really look forward to retiring. Was it, can you
Mhm.
tell me, like, what was happening in the workplace at that time for you?
Okay. The So the workplace had changed considerably, and I, in my particular situation, I really had lost a great deal of work-related satisfaction. I didn't see a great deal of value in what I was doing, due to a combination of a restructure And I think also the situation as a result of COVID, the pandemic. So
Mm.
the the combination of those two things meant that I ended up at this, tail end of my career, working in an area that wasn't really what I had. It's different from what I had done before. I mean, I was, in one sense, I should have been grateful that I wasn't made redundant and I was directly placed during this restructuring where many of my colleagues were made redundant, in fact.
Mm.
For some reason, they decided to directly place me in a new position, along with a couple of other people who were existing colleagues. And But the position was quite different from the work we had been doing prior to this restructure. Now, we could all do it, and I certainly was able to do it, and I did persevere for nearly 2 years in this new role or different role, but I didn't really like the work. If I was applying for a job, it's not the kind of job I would normally apply for,
Okay.
and so that was a significant factor
Mm.
in the workplace. I suppose another significant factor, which was a non-workplace factor, of course, is that I got to the stage where I could see that retirement was, from a financial point of view, a real possibility, that I did have the means by which I could retire. So that was certainly not ever a possibility any time earlier in my life
Mm.
than the last few years.
Mm.
And but there was also a workplace bullying case that it was with HR, which didn't involve me, other than I was a bystander witness, and but one of my colleagues was involved in that and brought the complaint formally to HR. Um, and that was a significant factor in delaying my decision to retire, because I didn't want to go until that matter was resolved. And in the end, even though it was more than 9 months in deliberation, the matter had not been resolved by the Christmas break of 2021, and I just couldn't wait any longer. I decided I'd have to go.
Mm. So essentially, though, you wanted to support your colleague.
Yes, I didn't want, I didn't want to go while this matter was still unresolved, and um, the possibility was there that I might be needed to give an account. I mean, I did formally in written form, so I did what I could, but I was waiting to see what HR would do about it, and so we'll see.
Mm.
In the end, that was unresolved. So I'll find out what happened um, in due course, because I'm still in contact with people
Mm.
there. But that was a significant problem, if you like, in the workplace. I guess the other thing was that in this new role, there were very few other people who were able to do this sort of work, and um, there was a real dependency on me personally to see the year out. Um,
Okay.
um, and so it was difficult. Well, it was almost impossible for me to depart earlier than the Christmas break.
Mm. Okay, so you might have even gone earlier if you hadn't felt that obligation to stay on to support your
Yeah,
family.
yeah. I remember now that early in 2021, I had decided just to myself that I would leave at the middle of the year. That I would leave in probably July or August, and
Mhm.
I mentioned that to my director, and at first that seemed to be uh, accepted and really not much of a problem. But as we got closer um, to that time, I was asked. It was pointed out to me how difficult it would be for everybody else if I left at that time,
Mm.
because there was work that had a natural progression through to November. Effectively, was when when the work was really finished and scheduled to finish. So that project couldn't. It was very difficult for them to take over that project
Mm.
before we got to the end of November.
Yeah.
So I was convinced to stay on a few more months, which was difficult for me because by that time I was really I was lacking in motivation and wasn't really interested.
Mm. And Rick, I'm like a bit coming from that professional background that you do. I find that with professional people, there's this sense of, you know, you can't let the team down,
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
otherwise
And
you're
it's a
not being
small team.
professional.
Yeah.
I think you've probably half answered the next question, which was at this point, when you were asked to stay on until the end of the year, I heard you say that you were lacking motivation and all that. So
Yes.
how else might you describe that time before you did retire, Rick?
I guess it was a little bit. There was mild frustration that I couldn't enact my plans. I mean, I had worked out what I wanted to do, and it was just a question of timing. When could I go? And so there was a little bit of frustration there, and but it was, yeah. I fell into the routine, and I kept on working. So it wasn't too difficult. But it
Okay.
wasn't what I preferred. It wasn't the year that I thought I was going to
Yeah.
see. I just ended up working an extra 6 months.
Mm. Yeah. And like even without COVID as a factor, I think that's not an unusual story that people, either leave earlier than what they'd planned, or otherwise they're asked to stay on because there's a job to be completed, come what may. So, yeah, well done. So yeah. Other than workplace issues, what are some other factors that you needed to consider when you were planning and thinking about retirement?
Um, well, I'm married, so I had to consider my wife. We're empty nesters. Our son's moved away, and he's independent and working. So there was very little else that I had to be concerned about. There was no other factor. It was my wife was the most affected person by the decision.
Mm,
Uh, she's also working. She works 3 days a week, and she's decided to continue working, but she's now considering retirement. So
yeah.
that's that's that just came out through our discussions. We'll see how that goes. It might not be very long before she decides to join me, I suspect. We'll see. But no, there weren't any other major concerns once we sorted out the financial ones and the work-related issues. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really just your wife who was involved in the discussions. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and in reflecting back on that journey that you've been through, let's would it be 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago that you started thinking about retirement? I'm wondering.
Probably a little more than two, so we're between 2 and 3.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it took about 2 years to get for everything to fall into place.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and in reflecting back, have you found that like you're thinking about it, it changed as time went by,
Mm.
or you had a plan and that's what you stuck to, except for the last 6 months?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter because I haven't really planned in any detail what I would be doing during my retirement. It was more about making the transition to retirement.
Mm.
the possibility of it, making sure that satisfying myself that it was a sensible and feasible thing to do, but not making too many assumptions about what retirement would be like. So we haven't planned trips or anything like that.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that if I can manage it financially, there are some renovations in the house or remodeling of the house that we need to do. But there's a lot of other things that need to be done before we get to that point anyway.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I didn't see it as being anything terribly dramatic in terms of lifestyle, other than the difference being that I would have a lot more time to myself, that not having to go to a full time job.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And it is a change, and it brings freedoms and flexibility that you haven't had for 40
Mm.
years.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
big adjustment, Rick.
it is. I suppose one thing I forgot to mention, I did join St Vincent de Paul as a deliberate part of the retirement plan. That in a sense, I was thinking that with Vinnie's, I can make that as little or as much of my time as I like, because it's volunteer work. So
Mm.
you can do a lot, you put a lot of time in doing all sorts of different things, or you can do a little bit, and it's quite flexible. But
Yeah.
I thought of that as being a worthwhile commitment to have, that would maintain a level of, I guess, scheduling and discipline in in my daily or weekly routine, that sort of thing.
Mm.
Um,
And it's
yeah.
also that giving back, isn't it? That volunteering in your own community.
Yes. Yes. So it's certainly a worthwhile activity,
Mm.
and something that certainly the way I was thinking in the last couple of years, that anything that I would do with Vinnie's would be, I thought, more worthwhile than what I was doing in my job,
Wow.
which had lost its appeal to me,
Yeah.
and I didn't see it as being a great contribution. Um,
Okay.
so so I decided I needed to find something that was a bit more of a contribution, and yeah, the opportunity to join St Vincent de Paul came up.
Wow. That sounds really worthwhile, Rick. Thank you for doing
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It hasn't really blossomed just yet because of the pandemic, and it's still early days. I'm still
Mm,
working through a few things with the super and all that sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, but over time, and this is one of the great things I've discovered now, that things can sort of progress on a different time scale than what, or time frame than what it used to, where everything used to be so frenetic and you had to get everything done so quickly, or it
Mm,
wasn't done at all.
mm.
Whereas now things can be worked on when it's convenient to work on them, and give them their time. Mm.
And maybe a greater sense of satisfaction.
Yes, yeah, I think so. That seems to be, or already in the last few weeks, that seems to be how it's panning out. It seems to be how it's developing. That
Mm,
I can choose to do the things that are of greater value, as far as I can tell. Mm.
mm. Yeah. It's nice being your own boss, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, yeah. I'm hoping it's not just a novelty, but it'll be something that I appreciate in the longer term.
So now that you have retired, and I hear you say that you're spending some time on volunteer work, how else are you spending your time, may we ask?
Yeah, well, I've got to look after my superannuation. So I have a self-managed super fund, where most of my superannuation is, and I've got to tidy that up, so and make changes and inform the ATO of my retirement status, so that and I've got to set up a pension. So I need to work with financial planner to do a lot of those things. So there's that. I've got multiple things to do around the house, and I've also um, for the last I've been pretty busy. Most of my time in the last this month has been on a little project, a little software project of my own.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that's been really good. Although it's become a little bit of an obsession almost. So I've just recently made sure that I'm doing that I've got other things to do during the day to take me away from that. Otherwise, I have been spending 10 hours a day on it,
Wow.
and that's just too much time sitting down at the computer, unfortunately. So I am moderating my activity there, but it's
Mm.
a great little project. I don't want to explain what it is. It'll take too long, and it's off topic.
Yeah.
But it is something that interests me. It's challenging, um, and I hope that it will be, you know, that it may in the future contribute to financially, but we'll see.
Mm. Yes, the
In the meantime,
possibility.
I'm learning lots.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot while I'm attempting to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
it sounds a very absorbing project that you've got going there, Rick. So, yeah, and I hope it does produce something really beneficial for you down the track.
Mm.
You might end up with what we call an encore career, you know,
Yes.
another
Oh, I
career.
didn't know I had a name. That sounds good. An encore career. Mhm.
Yeah. So at this stage, newly retired, what do you see as the benefits of retirement?
Um, well, I think on a day-to-day basis, I just feel a lot more relaxed, and um, I do feel that there's a very real sense of freedom, but in even the little things like being able to do your shopping on a different day than Saturday morning, which was always the only time of the week where I could do the shopping.
Yeah.
Uh, and now it can be any day, and it just depends on a variety of different factors, and you know, so little things like that, just as one example.
Mm.
Um, the fact that I can spend a lot of time on my own interests. And if I wanted to, actually, one of the things I thought I would do was that I would read a lot more. I thought once I'm retired, I've got all these books that I want to read, but I still have them there. They're still there waiting to be read. I did finish a couple that I had already started before retiring, but I haven't actually picked up any of the significant ones that I wanted to read.
Right.
Um, and
Now, is that at your
uh,
end, Rick, the ding dong? Are you getting a bell at your end?
yes, yes. Let me turn
Oh,
that down. Yep.
all right. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks. Yeah. So you've so haven't. There's plenty of time to get through this pile of books, Rick.
Yes, so I'll get to those soon, but but that hasn't happened as yet. Um, so yeah, sense of freedom, sense of being able to structure your day the way you need it to be, and not being pressured to some overarching schedule
Mm.
that is imposed on you in some way. But you know that can be good or bad. I mean, there could be times when you do need something, otherwise you're not going to get up out of the bed in the morning, you know. But
Mm.
thankfully, I've certainly got lots of things that are going to get me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been a problem. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That,
I
that's
think
that's good.
probably, you know, at this time, I would say that the pandemic situation, concerns about that restrictions, because we've been in lockdown, although we're not in lockdown now, although the economy is just that it's almost as though we are in lockdown. because people have self-imposed restrictions in order to avoid being infected. Those sorts of factors have had a bigger effect than the fact that I've retired during that time.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're certainly not going out and about, Anna and I. We're not seeing friends as much. So I think there would have been a lot more of that during retirement had we not been in a pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Rick, we're due to finish up, but before we go, is there anything else that you would like to add at this point?
No. Just thank you for being interested in this. I had no idea that the fact that I'd retired would be worth an interview, but I'm very pleased to oblige there.
Well,
It's been a great experience for me so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year actually, and hoping that as the pandemic effects subside, as they inevitably will, that there will be new and interesting things that I'll be able to do.
yeah. So Rick, thanks so much for your time. It's really valuable. It will assist people who might be struggling with that notion of retirement. There's going to be more and more Australians coming into the retirement category, and the more education that we can have around it, and including personal experiences, it's all so helpful. So thank you so much this morning, and and it was lovely to meet Harvey as well.
Yes, Harvey the photo bomber, isn't he? Yeah. He's left. He's no longer here.
Yeah, but no, thank you so much. So today we have taken a deep dive, Alice interviewing me about life coaching. And so if you want to find out more about my services or about retirement life coaching for yourself, I have a website, and I have a few resources there for you. If you Google Desire to Retire or 3 Ws, desiretoretire.com.au, there's a quiz about what's on your mind, and I have a Wheel of Life on the website, and plenty of podcast episodes about the different aspects to retirement life. So thank you indeed for listening.